On a brisk spring day, April 1885, the Port Arthur Board of Trade was established. Local businessmen, driven by a shared vision, united to bolster the economic welfare of their community. Among them stood Thomas Marks, a prominent merchant whose influence extended beyond commerce into the very fabric of municipal life. In 1884, Port Arthur transitioned from a settlement to an incorporated town. By popular acclaim, Thomas Marks was elected as its first mayor. In 1885, he was installed as the first president of the Port Arthur Board of Trade, a role he served until 1889. The actions of the Port Arthur Board of Trade sparked a wave of ambition in the neighboring community. Determined to carve out their own economic identity, the residents of Fort William took a bold step, and the Fort William Chamber of Commerce was officially established on April 4, 1891. George Graham, co-owner of the Graham and Horn Lumber Company, was installed as the first president for the Fort William Chamber, having served as president of the Port Arthur Board of Trade the year prior. As the 20th century dawned, both Port Arthur and Fort William experienced remarkable growth. Port Arthur became the terminus for the Canadian Northern Railway, transforming the town's landscape. Within a few short years, the rail yards, station, coal docks, blast furnace, hotel, telegraph service, and a towering grain elevator dominated the local economy. Meanwhile, Fort William emerged as a crucial rail hub, with both the Canadian Pacific Railway and the Grand Trunk Pacific actively operating within the community. The railways in both towns were vital to the port's development, driven by the booming grain trade. In 1909, grain shipments reached 100 million bushels, and before the First World War, they had surpassed 200 million bushels. By 1914, the combined population of the area had surged to over 30,000 people, with an influx of essential workers from across Europe, as sawmills, manufacturers, and merchants sprang up, catering to the needs of the growing towns. The Chamber of Commerce and Board of Trade played a pivotal role in these developments and were often directly involved in negotiations with prospective businesses and both city councils. Throughout the First World War, the industries of Port Arthur and Fort William played a crucial role in the war effort. The Port Arthur Shipbuilding Company constructed ocean freighters, trawlers, and tugs, while the Canadian Car and Foundry Company was bustling with activity, producing rail cars for the Canadian Government Railway and minesweepers for the French Navy. Throughout the 1920s, growth in the forest sector was significant. The Port Arthur Pulp and Paper Company opened first, followed in rapid succession by other mills, so that by 1929, pulp and paper dominated the manufacturing scene. Just a decade later, the Great Depression hit these communities hard. Factories closed and unemployment soared to over 50%. Recovery was slow but steady, marked by the reopening of the Canadian Iron Foundry, the Canadian Starch Works, Canada Car, and the revival of the pulp and paper industry with the reopening of Abitibi Power and Paper Company in 1937. The Second World War brought a resurgence in manufacturing to the Lakehead, driven by the influence of C.D. Howe, Port Arthur's MP and Canada's Minister of Munitions and Supplies. The Port Arthur Shipyard built 46 ships, while thousands of fighter and bomber aircraft rolled off the assembly line at Fort William's can-car plant. The end of the Second World War marked a significant shift for Port Arthur and Fort William. The decline of war-related industries led to reduced employment at Canada Car and the shipyards, and a slowdown in construction projects in the Twin Cities. With limited local opportunities, young people sought education in other cities, often not returning after graduation. This prompted the establishment of the Lakehead Technical Institute in 1948, which evolved to become Lakehead University in 1965. As other manufacturing sectors declined, the pulp and paper industry expanded rapidly, providing much-needed employment for those displaced. Many machinery and chemical producers adapted to this shift, transitioning to supply the growing forest products industry. Thus, the pulp and paper industry became a cornerstone, offering new opportunities in the region. In 1959, the St. Lawrence Seaway opened, and in July, the Royal Yacht Britannia sailed through its canals to Lake Superior. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip disembarked at the Port Arthur CPR dock, demonstrating that ocean-going vessels could now reach the heart of North America. By 1960, direct grain shipments from the Lakehead to the United Kingdom soared to over 20 million bushels. Port Arthur experienced its greatest building boom, with new warehouses, banks, offices, garages, a bowling alley, and a hotel. In addition, the completion of the Trans-Canada Highway's Lake Superior route brought an influx of tourists. In the years leading up to 1964, the Fort William Chamber of Commerce and the Port Arthur Board of Trade began collaborating on joint programs. These efforts laid the groundwork for unification. In January 1964, Port Arthur Board of Trade President V.B. Cook announced the formation of a merger committee with the goal of creating a single Chamber of Commerce. Later that year, the Lakehead Chamber of Commerce was established, marking the first step towards the eventual unification of the two cities. The newly united Lakehead Chamber of Commerce, combining the forces of Port Arthur and Fort William business leaders, set its sights on propelling the community forward. Working committees tackled the priority issues of the day, including forestry, tourism, retail, transportation, education, mining, agriculture, and various levels of government affairs. One of their significant advocacy efforts led to the establishment of Confederation College, a college of applied arts and technology addressing the educational needs of the region. The Chamber's unwavering focus on amalgamating the two cities culminated in success. They played a pivotal role in coordinating Thunder Bay's birthday celebration throughout 1970, including hosting the Ontario Chamber's annual meeting. Throughout the 1970s, the Chamber was instrumental in the community's growth, addressing a wide range of issues such as customs services, airport relocation and expansion, economic forecasting, labor relations, child daycare, seaway toll increases, civic elections, forestry regulations, shoplifting prevention, and highway signage. The 1980s and 1990s marked a transformative era for Thunder Bay, as the city shifted from its traditional reliance on natural resources and transportation to embrace a more diversified economy. At the start of the 1980s, the forest industry was a key economic driver, with 6 paper mills in the city and more across the region. However, high energy costs, automation, and growing competition began to impact these industries. Simultaneously, global grain markets shifted, and the rise of Pacific Coast ports reduced the importance of grain shipping on the Great Lakes, affecting the local port. Amid these challenges, the Chamber's Economic Development Task Force evolved into the Thunder Bay Economic Development Corporation. This new entity aimed to boost industrial, commercial, and employment development, guided by a board representing City Council, City Administration, the Chamber, labor, education, and area communities. Despite ongoing economic challenges, growth continued. New retail, commercial, and industrial areas emerged, including the Intercity Shopping Centre, the Thunder Bay Community Auditorium, the Canada Games Complex, and the new terminal at Thunder Bay International Airport. In 1995, Thunder Bay's 25th anniversary was celebrated with the hosting of the Nordic World Ski Championships, attracting the world's best ski jumpers and cross-country skiers to the city. The Chamber's efforts during this period were instrumental in shaping Thunder Bay's diversified and resilient economy, paving the way for future growth and prosperity. They fostered a collaborative relationship with the Thunder Bay District Labour Council, coordinated Thunder Bay on tour visits to Duluth to promote the city, highlighted local business success through the Business Excellence Awards, delivered star customer service training, and launched Shop Local campaigns to combat cross-border shopping. The Chamber also advocated for Sunday shopping, increased competitiveness, and reduced barriers to business. As the 21st century dawned, community leaders celebrated the opening of the Thunder Bay Charity Casino, which brought additional revenues to the city of Thunder Bay and new activity to the heart of the harbor downtown area. In 2003, Bullwater partnered with Fort William First Nation to open a new sawmill. This mill was the first in Canada to operate according to regulations under the First Nations Commercial and Industrial Development Act, which facilitates industrial development with First Nations on their lands. An economic transition was underway, with a focus on knowledge and healthcare opportunities. The community continued to advocate for its best interests, successfully pushing for the construction of the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Centre and the establishment of the Thunder Bay campus of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. Throughout 2004 and 2005, the Chamber led a coalition of business, community, labor organizations, and elected officials to secure manufacturing contracts for the local Bombardier operation. And in 2006, the Toronto Transit Commission unanimously supported the purchase of new TTC cars to be manufactured at the Thunder Bay Bombardier plant. As the first decade of the century progressed, the forest industry faced tremendous challenges, leading to the closure of numerous operations in the city and region. However, a renewed interest in mining emerged, with businesses exploring opportunities with Musselwhite Gold Mine, Lac des Îles Palladium Mine, and increased mineral exploration across the region, including the newly discovered Ring of Fire. The growth of Indigenous-led community services, education, and economic development organizations sparked a wave of new activity, collaboration, and partnerships in Thunder Bay and region. Through a strong desire to support reconciliation, the Aboriginal Opportunities Committee was initiated to underscore the Chamber's commitment to fostering dialogue, collaboration, and partnerships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous businesses. As Thunder Bay looks to the future, the spirit of resilience and determination that has defined the community continues to drive progress. With a steadfast focus on growth and collaboration, Thunder Bay is poised to embrace new opportunities, foster innovation, and build a vibrant, inclusive community for generations to come. The Chamber is and will continue to be a vital part of that future.